Now let me tell you about this superhero. This tester can't run tests. In fact, this tester can't even run because he's so fat. So, the reality distortion field of testing. Managers believe, and I think this is wrong, managers believe we are doing an excellent job if we do loads and loads of jobs that are not really up to us. So I'm going to present you with an alternative. I'm going to present you with a super tester of tomorrow. A lean, fit superhero. And this is my solution. Now please take it or leave it. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to say we should dedicate 50% of our time, non-negotiable, to actually executing and running manual exploratory testing. The other 50% of our time can be all the other stuff, okay? And this way, we can get experience in our testing skills. 50% of our time, and I think this is non-negotiable for me. So how are we going to do it? So let's go back to those aspects that I talked about of estimation and planning, and let me give you a potential solution. Estimation. Let's dedicate 2 hours out of 15 days maximum to estimating testing. Now the reason for this is I believe there are two main problems in our organizations with test estimation. We do not estimate testing correctly. There is a big myth about test estimation. The myth is this. Now a myth is a fabrication of truth or a half-truth. Now the fact is, with any estimation, it involves two aspects. It involves effort and it involves resource. And when we put those two together, it will give us our schedule. Now, with estimation, that's a myth. It's a half-truth because we need to estimate quality. There is a direct relation, a direct correlation between the quality we're expecting out of development and the effort we're going to expend in terms of testing. Direct correlation. And yet no one does this. The other is managers do not get this. Now I'm going to show you by illustration what I mean. Let's imagine your manager says to you, roughly how long is it going to take you to test this application? And you do your homework and you spend time and you work out that it's going to take you and your team 4 weeks, okay? 4 weeks of testing. That includes all aspects of testing. Now, he says to you, because it's late in the day on Friday, he says to you, let me think about that 4 weeks. Now, as he's getting in his car, he's thinking 4 weeks. Already, he's putting it into his schedule. And it doesn't fit. Now, this is what I'd like you to do. You see, we've done our homework, and I think there's a relation between the effort we're thinking we're doing and the service we're going to provide. But you see, for that 4 weeks, they're going to get the platinum service. Now, let's add into that not only the effort, but let's add in the estimate for our number of defects. So let's say we're going to estimate 80 defects. Already he's got in his car and he said 4 weeks doesn't fit. Now what are you doing in 4 weeks? This is not difficult. Testing, great. Now 4 weeks doesn't fit, but 2 weeks does. What are you doing in those 2 weeks? Testing. It's identical to the 4 weeks according to our manager. And what we need to do now is we need to say, well, okay, if we've got two weeks, you're not going to get the platinum service. You're going to get the silver service. Now, he goes home and he has a barbecue at the weekend, and on Sunday evening, he has a dream about the project. And it's the perfect project. Everything went well. In fact, he gave you 2 weeks, but you didn't need it. You only needed 1 week. Now, what are you doing in 1 week? Testing. I know less testing, but to the manager, it's exactly the same. So now we've got 1 week, because he comes into work on Monday and says, I've got a brilliant idea. Thank you for your estimate. Instead of 4 weeks, you've got 1 week. This doesn't happen, does it? And you see, what we need to do is go back to the manager and say, well, okay, we'll use 1 week. I've given up arguing with managers, absolutely arguing with them. If you give me 1 week, then you've got the bronze service. And they'll go, what's in the bronze service? And you go, not a lot. Now, have you looked at the defects? You see, with the platinum service, we were going to find 80 defects. Now, in less time, we're going to find less defects, but more defects will be found by our customer base. And this is a dilemma in testing. I'm going to put myself as devil's advocate. What would a senior manager prefer? Giving you 4 weeks and you find loads more defects that will slow the project down, or give you 1 week where you find less defects and we can sign off early? I'm just playing devil's advocate. So, quick estimates. Just assume we can run 4 exploratory testing charters a day. That's 2 hours per charter. Assume we're going to find 10 defects per charter. Very, very quick. That's 2 hours out of 15 that we dedicate to test estimation. It's not worthwhile arguing with managers. Test plans. Dedicate 2 hours out of 15 maximum for test planning. So instead of this, which no one reads, and I was talking to, I don't know if Henry's here, I was talking to Henry and he gave me a story on his last project. He sent out a test plan and said to his management team, was it okay? And they said, absolutely perfect, fantastic. He'd inadvertently sent a blank test plan. So not only was there rubbish written in it, there was nothing in it. So regardless of this, rather than ending up with a pile of 50-page test plan, let's produce half a page of bullet points and let's present that to the team. And I will guarantee that this is still a plan and it might even be read, but it will be commented on in the presentation. Just 2 hours maximum. So there's our 50% still dedicated to test execution. Test specifications. Let's dedicate 3.5 hours out of 15 days, and you can scale this up to your projects. So that's a maximum, 3.5% dedicated. Test charters, high level, yes. Test cases, maybe. Depends on your project if you want to go down, but keep them at a high level. We've already said this, Dawn was saying this morning, test procedures and scripts, no, okay? Don't produce them unless someone else is going to run them, or you need auditability or automation. And I'd add a fact that really the only one that I would consider as being truthful, or yes, we should do it, is automation. The other two, there's tools to enable us to do it. So there you go. We've still got our 50% of execution. Environments. Environments are a difficult one because we all need test environments to run. So the last set of slides, I said that we spent about 3.5% of our time on environments. Now keep that percentage. Don't reduce it by any means. And monitor the availability of your environment. And if you're going over that period of time, then it might be your environment needs to be uphauled and sort of enhanced to make more realistic and more representative and more robust in future. So there you go, we've got our environment there of 3.5%. Test reporting. We've heard some tremendous presentations about how we provide information. So I'm going to suggest this, that rather than detailed reports, we dedicate 3.5 hours out of 15 days, that's half a day, to test reporting over that 15-day period. So when we're doing exploratory testing, we have high-level tests in the form of charters. And what we can do is we do a 15-minute debrief at the end of each day. And during that 15 minutes, we provide proof. That is a good acronym for our testing. Very, very quick. Product assessment. Very quick product assessment of what we've done that day. Looking at the results, how many bugs did we find? What was the issues that we experienced? What were the observations? What were the things we need more investigation on? What are the obstacles that are preventing us doing our job? And also, what are our future plans for the following day? And this fits really nicely with stand-up meetings. And move away, please move away from this number of test cases that managers are wanting. And I told you yesterday, all they want are large numbers. The larger the better, according to our managers. So we need to move away. And if they keep on asking for this irrelevant information, then challenge it. It's just a reality distortion field. So there you go. There's still our 50% dedicated, and it's chopping up the other 50%. Meetings. Meetings have to happen whether we like it or not. Okay, so I suggest out of 15 days, we should spend about an hour per day. That is about 15 hours. That's about 2 days out of 15 on meetings. Now, when you're doing test execution, and this is difficult, when you're doing test execution, no phone calls, no emails. Switch your links off or your Skypes off and dedicate those 2 hours to test execution. Because every time you're interrupted, you lose downtime, you lose productivity. And the more we do this, the people will get it. They will understand. They will know you are busy, okay? And you just say, it's just for 2 hours, it's just for an hour and a half, and after that, I'll be with you. But please leave me alone. You see, everyone believes that they can interrupt you. And I think sometimes we need to take hold of our own destination and our own, basically our own hours that we've got in the day. Bring in meeting etiquette. I see so many meetings that if they brought in some etiquette into meetings, it would be much more efficient. For instance, have an agenda. Start on time. No phones out or texting. No laptops doing emails. And then we dedicate ourselves to the meeting in hand. And I reckon an hour's meeting can actually be shortened to about 20 minutes, 15 minutes, if we have meeting etiquette. Automation. Dedicate 2 days out of 15 to automation. That's 14%. Tools are there to support testing. There is no tool on the market that can fully automate testing. We need human beings to do that job. And there is much more to test automation than just execution tools. There are test design tools that can really help generate your tests automatically. Things like Testonor and Pict, things like SmartDraw, things like Decision Table Creator that are free. There are things that help with bug raising, like Instabug on mobile phones. And make automation work for you. I usually say, if you are bored in your job as a tester, there is usually a tool that can actually replace that boredom. So if you're running scripts manually over and over again, execution tool. If you're having to generate tests manually, there's a test design tool. If you're doing compares manually with one file or another, there's a compare tool. So if ever you are bored in testing, there is a tool that probably help you on that. And finally, assisting developers. I'm not saying we shouldn't assist developers by any means at all. I think we need to collaborate with them. But look what's happened here. We said this is sacrosanct. 50% of my time in my company, I'm dedicated test execution. I'm going to chop up all the other bits. And the developers, you can have what's left, which apparently is about 7.5% of that 100%. That's about a day in 15 days. This is the yin-yang approach. You see, if we help developers, I expect developers to help us. And you know, if that happens, and if we do help developers and developers help us, then we can dedicate more time to helping developers. Absolutely, those numbers go up. But resist, please resist becoming a developer, unless you want to become a developer. And you can become a developer by doing automation. But don't get into Java and C++, because what will happen is you will be dragged into developing software rather than testing it. And we had some shocking things from Les yesterday about some quotes about statistics and what's happened when people don't test. So there you have it. 50% manual exploratory testing, dedicated. Try it, okay? Just try it out. It may not work for you, but it might work for you. So there's our super fit lean tester of tomorrow. 50% manual testing to find bugs, gaining confidence, saving money, happier customers and happier testers. This is the fun stuff. Running tests and finding defects. I was talking to Henry yesterday, and he told me a story about, he's just bought a car with lots of sensors. And this car automatically stops when it detects something. And he also has hooked up, because he likes a boat. He's hooked up a boat to drive to his destination because he likes sailing. And he went to reverse, and it wouldn't reverse because it detected an object behind the car. Now, I'm convinced that that company had huge amount of documentation, massive amount of documentation for testing. But I wonder if anyone said, I wonder what happens if somebody hooks up something and then tries to reverse. Obviously, they didn't.